Hello and welcome. This is Dirty Saxophone bringing you another video about Xbox. So, for those of you who keep up with gaming news, you know that Xbox has been at it again. Honestly, the bad news for Xbox has been pouring in for maybe a month, 2 months now at this point, and none of it has been particularly good. There's honestly a lot to dissect here. We can start at the 30% profit margin that is wreaking havoc on the Xbox ecosystem, or we can go to one of the strangest concepts we've heard recently about the Microsoft approach regarding Xbox, and that is that Xbox is not competing with gaming. To use the specific words verbatim, gaming is not competing with gaming, or the competition of gaming is not gaming. In other words, Xbox's competition is not PlayStation, as Satya Nadella put it, but short form entertainment is the competition of gaming. So, short form entertainment would include Instagram Reels, TikTok Reels, maybe even YouTube Shorts and things like that. And understandably so, a bunch of gaming news content creators have attacked this concept, but I personally think that there's a lot to consider. But before I get into that, I'm going to go ahead and make a little stop at this one specific piece of news that came in with all of the other bad news we've been hearing about Xbox lately, which includes the raised console prices, the raised price for Xbox Game Pass, and the price of the ROG Ally, the price of the next console, that sort of thing. And that's that at some point in time, it was reported that Xbox would no longer be sold at Target and Walmart. So, as time went on, it actually became clear that Walmart and Target were actually still going to continue selling Xbox. And the reason why I bring up this piece of information is because that little bit of news actually made it out to the audience, even to me, and it at some point became something that I was discussing with people on Discord channels and stuff like that. So the fact that there is so much bad going on with Xbox right now that occasionally bad news that isn't quite the case slips by made me kind of a little bit self-aware. It made me feel like the gaming news landscape on YouTube specifically maybe would benefit from pumping the brakes and having a little bit more of a nuanced approach to the situation. And well, there's just a lot of crazy things going on with Xbox and a lot of interesting a lot of interesting reactions from the player base have been coming out as well. And specifically in my case, I spoke to one of my nephews a while back, and I was telling him that we might be switching to the PlayStation ecosystem, next generation. And the reason why I mentioned this is because it was interesting in that his response was really quite. He was taken aback. He said, "No, how are we gonna do that? Are you really going to betray Xbox?" Now, my nephew is young. He hasn't been listening to gaming news anywhere near as long as I have. He isn't really in the know about these things. But it isn't a surprise to me that he was treating Xbox and PlayStation almost like a sports team. Xbox and PlayStation are not sports teams. they're they're very they shouldn't it's very much so the wrong approach. But this is actually the case for a lot of Xbox fans. And this is probably why it hurts so much to see Xbox going down, right? Now, aside from I guess what you can say are the fanboys or the people who have a bad approach to this, there are also the people who maybe the biggest reason why they don't like the idea of Xbox going down as a gaming platform is that competition really does cause the other players of the game, or, in this case, Sony or Nintendo, to not become lazy. Nintendo to a lesser degree because they are definitely not involved in the high end hardware console war side of things. They're making games over there, good games from what we've seen, but they're not really so much in the console war to the degree that Sony and Xbox have been over the years. But yeah, that said, let's get into it. We're going to start with specifically an interview that a chairman or CEO from Xbox had recently, in which he said some very interesting things, some things that I think really shed some light on the approach of Xbox going forward. So, Satya Nadella. Recently, he did an interview in which he stated that the competition for gaming is not gaming, which was a very interesting way to put it because he didn't even choose to say Xbox's competition is not PlayStation. So it comes off as if Xbox is something entirely different in his head, right? Like, I think that Xbox gaming is dead. Say hello to Xbox Entertainment. So, from what I've heard, when Microsoft came up with Xbox and they decided to put it out, it was in a way to kind of further purport their Windows software out into society. Because before we continue, let's touch on what Microsoft as a company is, right? So Microsoft is where Windows operating system came out of. And the Windows operating system is a very big part of societal infrastructure. This is a company that changed and shaped society into what it is today. Not alone, of course. There are other companies that have played a big role in that regard. But Microsoft is huge. And that, I guess, their history in that aspect really goes to show here because it's becoming exceedingly clear that they do not necessarily care about the art form of gaming, right? They don't care about the art form of storytelling or about engaging gaming mechanics, right? That's not really what they got into the industry for. What they care about is entertainment in general. What's keeping people occupied when they're not working, right? So, in order for me to be able to say that short form entertainment is far away from being any kind of threat to the gaming industry, I would honestly have to have stacks of paper on my desk or files upon files on my computer telling me the numbers of what people are being engaged with. Now, unfortunately for us as a society, there's probably a lot of companies that do have a good amount of access to that kind of information. But just from my very enclosed space, right, I can surmise that it isn't entirely out of this world to think that short form entertainment, to a degree, is affecting, right, gaming 20, 30, 40 years ago. Maybe the things that were competing for especially children's attention were either going outside to play soccer, football, and etc., or it was video games, right? Super Nintendo, right? Mario, Sega Genesis. Nowadays, if you take a look at what infants and toddlers are getting into first before anything else, it's their parents' phones and, by extension, the shorts on those phones. So, from what I can see, this is the approach that Microsoft is taking. Now, before you get up in arms about what I'm saying here, I'm not defending what Xbox is doing. I'm defining or attempting to define what they're doing so that we can better understand what maybe their approach is going to be going forward, whether it is or isn't to the detriment of the gaming landscape. In my opinion, it is very much so to the detriment of the gaming landscape, but that's a discussion for further along in the video, etc. The golden age of Xbox, according to a lot of people, was during the age of the 360. And a big part of me is starting to feel like the golden age of Xbox was honestly an accident, something that just kind of happened without really them planning for that to be the case, because, or maybe they could be misleading us, right? So one of the things that they came out and said when they spoke about Xbox was that when Xbox first came up as a concept, it was a means of extending that Windows OS, right? Getting it out to more hands or into more households, into more organizations, etc. Maybe it's true, right? Maybe their plan was never to put out art form in storytelling and gameplay mechanics like most of us gamers really hoped or wished they would. And it was easy for us to believe that that was their intent all along, because really there were some great games coming out for Xbox. Halo 1, Gears of War. All of those games really did shape the industry, changed the industry. And it kind of may have served as a very accidental camouflage for what Microsoft had been intending all this time. Or the opposite could be true, which is something that I've been hearing from a lot of gaming news content creators on YouTube lately, in that Xbox is only letting go of the battles that they've already lost. One of the things that they came out and said was that exclusives are antiquated. It's easy to say that exclusives are antiquated because you're losing that battle, right? It's also easy to say that Xbox is not in competition with PlayStation because, again, you're losing that battle and you've pretty much already lost it, right? So that's another possibility of what could be happening at Xbox. But in the case that that wasn't actually true, and that Microsoft is actually out here playing a game of 4D chess that none of us really expect or understand, then this all seems par for the course, right? Because it's really quite possible, considering the history of Microsoft and how they've changed society in general, that they never intended for that to be the focus, for gaming to be the focus, especially nowadays that entertainment has become separate or at least more varied than gaming. Maybe when Xbox came out, at that point, I don't even think cell phones had video games like that, right? When the Xbox One came out, I'd have to go and do some research. Maybe when the Xbox first came out, gaming was a big part of entertainment, next to movies and music. By the time they got around to the Xbox One, they had decided that cable TV, was a big part of entertainment, and they decided to put it all together into one console or thing doing the same thing. So clues as to what Microsoft has been doing have been there for years now. They've been looking at Xbox not as a gaming platform, but as an entertainment platform, quite likely from the very beginning. And unfortunately, those of us who look at Xbox and PlayStation as if they were sports teams are shocked and appalled by what we're seeing. So, that being said, that puts us in a position where Microsoft is not pushing Xbox as a platform to compete with PlayStation. And how does that hurt the gaming landscape? PlayStation has always had Xbox as a competing platform. And most gaming news content creators will always point out that competition is good. As an example of this, I would like to point out a bit of information I came across that I haven't heard other people discussing yet too often in Discords or on YouTube or in Reddit, etc. And that's that it came out that the next PlayStation console, the one that's going to be competing with this hybrid console that Xbox is coming out with, could be $1,000. Now, if you ask me, I don't think it's possible that PlayStation comes anywhere close to that price point unless they knew beforehand that Xbox was coming out with a console that is between $1,200 and $1,500. Unlike Microsoft, Sony is very much still fighting that console war, and they do not plan to lose it. Naturally, if you look at what Xbox is doing with that new hybrid console, one way or the other, whether they intend it to be a threat or not, it is a threat to Sony. Because overall, that hybrid console is going to be a, how should I say, a higher end performance machine than the PlayStation. As we stand right now, I believe specs, in terms of specs, the Xbox Series X is still better than the Sony Pro that they have out right now by a small margin, right? But still, one of the things that is helping that Sony console to beat that Xbox console is that it has the better exclusives. Overall, it's just offering a much more engaging experience to the players. And if Xbox puts out a console that not only beats the Sony console in terms of hardware, but also allows the same games to be played via Steam, then that is a clear threat to Sony. Before we move on here, I think it would just be the absolute most hilarious thing. The chaotic evil side in me really wants this to happen. I personally don't think Microsoft has approached Sony and had any specific talks about what it means to be putting Gears of War and Halo, the new Halo, the campaign evolved version, on the PlayStation, right? I don't think they went there and said, hey, we'll give you these games if you let us do this. I think that Microsoft is assuming that because their console is going to have access to Steam, that people who buy that console are going to have access to PlayStation games. Now, there's also the note that the games that Sony releases exclusively on PlayStation don't come to PC until around a year or more later. There's that. But there's also the possibility that PlayStation, which is still very much so in this console war, can come out and say, you know what, screw you guys. No, you guys can't play PlayStation games on that hybrid Xbox console. Right? I mean, it's probably crazy that they would do something like that, but I don't think it's entirely impossible. And personally, I think it would be absolute cinema if they did that, because I think at this point in time, this game of 4D chess that they're playing has really gone to their heads. I mean, I understand that this is an industry that has shaped society as we know it, but I think that they're just overestimating their own intelligence. Honestly, they're overestimating themselves. So that $1,000 PlayStation console, right? It's going to there has to be a reason why it's costing $1,000. I'm guessing that it's because PlayStation is going to be pushing those specs as much as possible. It very likely isn't going to come anywhere near in terms of versatility to that Xbox hybrid console, because I doubt PlayStation is going to put Windows on their console, but they're definitely going to push the specs. Now, if that PlayStation console can be as good as a $2,000 PC at $1,000, right, then it's going to destroy Xbox. Even if it's as good as a $1,500 PC, it'll still be really good. And I think PlayStation is very much so aware that Xbox is fighting an uphill battle. Not that Xbox is fighting the battle overall. Honestly, Xbox is on a hill, walking up, strolling, while Sony is up at the top with, a bunch of 50 cals raining bullets down. And Xbox is like, oh, rainy day today, isn't it? But yeah, PlayStation is very much so competing with Xbox, whether or not Microsoft is putting any effort into things in that regard. So then, what does this mean for the gaming industry going forward in regards to Xbox versus PlayStation? Well, it means that Microsoft has a very strange approach to Xbox. Xbox gaming isn't the thing anymore. This is Xbox entertainment versus PlayStation. In our minds, honestly, the way we're going to cover it and look at it. The only way we're going to know how it's going to affect the gaming landscape is, well, by looking at things as they go forward. So the biggest concern of a lot of gamers right now is that with Xbox gaming not being a thing anymore, it means that PlayStation is going to have a license to be lazy, because honestly, Nintendo is not really competition for them in terms of hardware specs, at least, right? I don't think people are going to stop playing PlayStation to go play Nintendo, and Sony very likely knows this. We can see that this is true. Xbox being a thing really does put pressure on Sony because we've seen it happen over the years and we're seeing it happen now. I don't think Sony would be putting out $1,000 console if Xbox or Microsoft in this case wasn't doing what they're doing with their console. So we're not going to know how it's going to affect the gaming industry until both of these consoles come out. But what we do know right now is that Microsoft is playing an insane game of 4D chess in regards to all of this. And we should all approach it from that angle when we talk about it. There is no more Xbox gaming. This is Xbox Entertainment. And Xbox Entertainment is going to be on PlayStation. It's going to be on your TV. It's going to be on your fridge, probably. It's going to be on your phone, on your ROG Ally, probably even on your Steam Deck at some point. If it isn't already, honestly, I don't know too much about handhelds. It could already be there. So, yeah, the world that we live in today in terms of the game industry is insane. But nevertheless, really quite entertaining. I'm having a lot of fun just listening to people talk about this and, of course, dissecting everything that's going on. Even though I disagree with a lot of the viewpoints out there in terms of the approach to Xbox, because right now everyone is piling on Xbox, and it isn't that they don't deserve it, they do, but it seems like a lot of people really fail to see the approach and they decide to ignore what we're looking at here. This isn't a company that looks at gaming as the most important or as the largest form of entertainment to human society. Most gaming enthusiasts, they look at the gaming industry as an industry that is tailored to them. But Microsoft is not tailoring the gaming industry, or at least their gaming platform, to the common gamer. They are tailoring it to society. And that creates a very different gaming platform than what we all want from Xbox. And that is unfortunate. Honestly, I've seen so many videos saying Xbox is dead, Xbox is dead. Part of me said it's not dead until we don't see any more Xbox merchandise coming out. But the more I thought about it, the more it seemed to be, well, true. Xbox gaming is dead in a sense. They've become Xbox Entertainment, and Xbox Entertainment is going to include who knows what at this point, because by putting a console together with a PC, they pretty much bridge the gap of largely everything. I mean, maybe they think that people are going to want to watch Instagram reels or scroll through TikTok on their TV. No, right? Because that's more than likely one thing you're going to be able to do with that hybrid console. Who knows? But what I do know is that Microsoft is too big for their own bridges. In this quest to shape what entertainment looks like across human society, they've destroyed so many games, franchises, and for the common gamer, this is a disaster. For the future of entertainment for human society, we've yet to see. Who knows what it's going to do to entertainment in general 5-10 years from now. But right now, for sure, seeing games like Perfect Dark being buried, or even seeing Bethesda being allowed to do what they're doing with their IPs, with their beloved IPs, because Microsoft doesn't really care in that regard. It might even be conducive to what they want, right? Because last I heard I heard an interview with Todd Howard in which he stated that there was a game that they made, I think it might have been Starfield, that was intended to be played for a decade. A single player game intended to play a decade is insane, but it makes sense if you're looking to create entertainment for human society rather than entertainment for the common gamer, right? The common gamer doesn't think that a single player game should be made to be played for a decade. There should be a sequel coming out within 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on how you look at things, right? But if you're trying to entertain human society long term, a single player game intended to be played for 10 years probably makes sense. So for all we know, Microsoft is probably celebrating what Bethesda is up to out there, and unfortunately, those of us who are fans of Fallout are stuck with Fallout 76 for however long it's going to be. And now I understand that Fallout 76 has apparently become a great game. I'm never going to find out. They burned me when I first started playing that game, and I don't want to go back there and give them any support for that game. And then there's also Starfield, which I tried and also wasn't great. Now, all I want is another Fallout, man. Give me Fallout 5, please, and have it be good. You know, that's it. Or at least a solid 7 out of 10 would be nice, because honestly, Fallout games get better than they actually are when you're a fan. When you're a fan, a 6 out of 10 Fallout is probably still your world and worth a lot of YouTube content. You know, there's people who's gonna make a ton of content, a ton of entertainment. Honestly, maybe that's how their approach, right? Like, but then again, if you look at Elden Ring has a massive amount of content engagement on YouTube, from lore videos to shorts, all kinds of stuff. But then again, horrible games also do, which is unfortunate. And that's probably what Microsoft is going to look at. You don't need to have a good game to have entertainment. Maybe that's how they look at it. Who knows? But overall, this is bad for the common gamer, especially the classic gamer, the one that's used to good storylines, engaging gaming mechanics, you know. This isn't overall it looks like it's going to be bad for the industry, but we're not really going to know until those next consoles come out and until we see what's going on in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's going to do it for today. This is my first free form recorded video like this. Please bear with me as I get good. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. It helps a lot. And if you didn't like the video, hit the dislike. But if you didn't like the video, I encourage you to post in the comments so that I can get some constructive criticism out of it. I don't mind disagreeing with people. I'm really good in that regard. I learn a lot from disagreements, of which there have been a lot lately, especially in regards to Xbox. I very commonly engage in comments on other people's gaming news videos, and yeah, the conversation is really quite engaging. Anyway, hope you enjoyed as much as I enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one.